Ye is Kanye West's best album because it is the best representation of who he is right now. When you have on like the Life of Pablo the song "I Love the Old Kanye" or whatever the song was called, "I Love Kanye," I forgot. But when you have a song like that, he consciously kind of looks into the fans' face and say, you either love me or you don't love me, and this is who I am now. And if you prefer the old me, that's not even me anymore. It's like this old version of me that is currently updated to the me now. And when you have his call these Twitter rants about loving everyone and the importance of love and acceptance and all this stuff, it's very much a plea to have other people accept him as a person, because throughout his career, he seems to have been in constant search for recognition and acceptance and love from the people around him, to the degree that it feels like it has been haunting him. So when you have issue, he mentions in the album he's like a gentle mental. He is a perfectionist, but he also strives acceptance. And he is currently very frustrated with the new kind of this new slew of like media coverage he's been getting, because which I think he addresses a lot on the song "Ghost Town," where he's saying, I forgot what the Kid Cudi chorus was, but the lines had something about how he just wants acceptance and he wants people to love him, and he's trying his best to get people to love him and appreciate him. But whatever he does doesn't seem to work, and it makes things worse. And he talks about this in different respects throughout the album. You get "Wouldn't Leave," when he talks about his experiences trying to just do. He says he's trying to do positive things, and then his wife, Kim, hears about the TMZ thing, and he offers her to leave him, and she wouldn't leave, and she would stick by him, and all this stuff. He just wants acceptance from everyone, and perhaps it is, you can argue, very narcissistic, which I think he acknowledges. He acknowledges that he's a narcissist, but he also acknowledges in this album that he kind of embraces his mental health issues. That he maybe perhaps to some degree he knows that he's somewhat irrational, and he's been acting kind of erratically. And you do get that impression that he is aware of it when he talks about he's bipolar. His album cover has the words, "I hate being bipolar, it's great," or something. And it's just to think of Kanye West as inherently erratic and controversial and always trying to change, or always changing so drastically, it makes sense that he's bipolar. And it seems like he really is, and he's acknowledging it, and he's talking about his drug addiction and his ways of trying to cope with his mental breakdowns. I watched his his interview with I forgot who it was, but he has this 2-hour interview, Charlemagne, and a lot of it he talks about like how apparently after Life of Pablo he got into a mental breakdown because he was sad that his songs weren't going to the top of the charts or something. Whatever he was doing, there's some kind of mechanism behind the pop song sphere, the radio playing. There's like a mechanism behind it that he doesn't understand, that he claims that he felt like was working against him to not play his songs, so he won't be as successful as someone like Drake, which is just who he is, it seems. And kind of to embrace Kanye West as an artist, you have to embrace who he is, right? And every new album, Kanye West, more than most artists, is always constantly changing his sound, his lyrical content, his ideologies in life. From college dropout to late registration to graduation, is such a big change. As that kind of those 3 albums follow his increase in popularity up to the pop sensation that was graduation. And then then you get 808s, and then after 808s is the Taylor Swift thing, and he tries to reclaim his status as like he wants love so much after he gets extremely maligned by the public, by the media cycle, by the whole media industry. Is very maligned for the whole Taylor Swift thing. He creates My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and then So he's this life of public. He's always constantly in change, and I think again I think this is often there's this mistaken idea that artists at some point fall off creatively or that become less creative. I think what mostly actually happens is that they just, as a person, as who they are, they just don't change as much anymore. At a certain point, they stop changing, and when they stop changing personally, when they stop experiencing new things, when they stop surrounding themselves with new kinds of music, with new kinds of art, with new kinds of ways of thinking, they fall into a state of being content with who they are. And when they make the music that they feel they're expressing and they're making, it's inevitable that the music sounds similar because they feel similar, and that's a similar kind of songs that they're putting out. It's easy to kind of narrativize discographies in the perspective of change and context with what's happening with regards to the artist's personal life and the situation of the world around them. For example, a very easy example is the Beatles, and when you look at their when people kind of narrativize their discography, you talk about maybe Rubber Soul was the first album that they supposedly changed, and this was when they were introduced by Bob Dylan to weed, and then you get psychedelics, LSD influence on like Revolver, leading into Brian Epstein dying, and then you get Sgt. Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour projects that were very much influenced by psychedelic drugs, as well as being in response to Brian Wilson's Pet Sounds. And then you get a tumultuous history of the Beatles when they were all very disparate and separate from each other during the recording of the White Album. And all of that, all of these things come together in a way after the artist has done making music, where people like to look at their pieces of work in the perspective of a grander career and a grander life, with the music reflects them. And I think in all respects, in all kind of artist discographies I can think of, it's always the same way. It's always narrativized in the same kind of contextual to the artist and perspective in time. The thing is, when you look at critical reception at the time in which something is released, it is so much influenced by the context, the world context, the artist's place in the media world. Obviously, Ye was never going to be getting good reviews or fantastic reviews, because to give Kanye West a positive review today is to somehow give him a positive review for his recent antics and his comments on slavery and his comments on his controversial comments on Donald Trump and Black Lives Matter and all of this stuff. It's so intertwined into that history that it's difficult to really look at things now objectively, in the sense of how, in the grander scheme of things. And the problem is that we're in this age of assigning objective quality to music in a way that it's kind of condensed and solidified through time, where you look at a Metacritic score and you see the Metacritic score of Yeezus, or not Yeezus, of whatever this is, Ye, and you'll see that it's a 67 or whatever, 60 something score in Metacritic, and that's going to be its permanent fixture in the internet history of sorts, when that leaves no space for reevaluation or contextual reevaluation. It often happens with controversial albums, where after a period of time they get reassessed and thought about in a way that is more open to the context of the closer future, the closer and further in future, and the closer and the further and further past. And I believe that Ye as an album will be so pivotal in his career because of, and it's going to be so influential. I perceive high influence in shorter albums. I think that the Kanye West sound of the 35 songs in this month period is going to incredibly influence radio, I think, and solidify him as an amazing producer. Though there'll be hesitant notions with him as an artist, people will appreciate his production skills. He's an incredible producer, and he seems to be improving every single album. For example, what I think is so fascinating about Kanye West's production is that he produces songs in parts in a way that is very different from the normal pop structure, where you have a chorus and a verse, chorus, verse, where each part is produced similar way and just kind of repeated, copy pasted over and over again, with very little variation. But what you have in Kanye West albums and Kanye West songs and how he's been producing lately is that the songs are so, I bet you could cut the song in so many parts, and he changes the production in so many shifts in production every single step of the way, and it's very incredible actually. For example, we hear a song like the first track where he goes into his kind of opening monologue, which not to kind of denigrate him, but it reminded me of XXXTentacion. But he has his opening monologue that goes into like his singing and goes into rapping. It's like there are many parts, and then Yikes does the same thing, where there's just so many levels of energy and production, you know, production style, production techniques that when you listen to the album and just try to ignore, if you ignore all the lyrics, it's just so incredible to listen to, and how every song is so multi-partite, and in a way that you can tell he cares so much about the music. You can tell that the lyrics for him was very much an afterthought, and the fact that it was like written over the last few weeks, he must have spent so much time producing the songs first, right? Because he's a producer first before he's a producer first before a rapper, and he's never really been a rapper's rapper. He's always been incredible production. Sometimes he has good bars, sometimes he doesn't. He has some pretty silly ones on this album as well. But again, Ye is Kanye West's best album because it is the best representation of who he is right now. And if you are a fan of Kanye West, you are a fan of him as a person, you are a fan of his music, have to be a fan of this album. And if you're not, that means that perhaps there's something about Kanye West, of who he has become now, that is not to your liking. And if you're not a fan of the new Kanye, then it's okay. You're not a fan of the new Kanye. But you know, if you kind of look through all the albums, and if you believe in the kind of metaphysical essence of an artist, I think that if one believes in the metaphysical essence of an artist and buys into their genius to some degree, then that would make all their pieces of art or work, music, or whatever, individually special and good and interesting. So yeah, that's what I thought about the album. I think it's I don't want to kind of give judgments on it as opposed to its quality or as good or bad. I think it's best because it is the best representation of who he is now. And after listening to it multiple times over the last few days, I do think that there's a lot of artistic merit to it, and that maybe being overshadowed by his recent antics. If you find the lyrics silly, just ignore the lyrics, listen to the production. It's incredible. Just as it was with Daytona last week. Although Pusha T is arguably a better rapper, he's a rapper's rapper. Kanye West is not a rapper's rapper. So it's interesting to see the contrast between them as their personalities, but then you hear the narrative through line of the production, and it's incredible production. So yeah, that's what I thought about the album. It's very soulful, it's very introspective, it's very small compared to his more grandiose work in the previous few albums, but it feels like it's his most personal, and I appreciate that very much. So yeah, that's what I thought about the album.